He's never going to know what it's like to be a father. Everyone failed my son, even I did. I tried to save him and I couldn't get to him in time.
Her son was murdered as she watched. Now this Hamilton mother is speaking out about the bullying he faced. Devin Brachy-Selby called his mother from school on Monday, telling her he was being bullied. And she says it wasn't the first time it had happened. Not long after that, the 14-year-old was dead. At this hour, people are gathering for a memorial in his honor. That's where Talia Ritchie is live for us tonight. And Talia, Devin's family is also there this evening.
That's right, Dwight. We're already starting to see people gather along with flowers, messages of love, and also notes of anti-bullying. It's obviously going to be very emotional here tonight. Devin was just a few weeks into grade 9 and, according to his mother, a victim of bullying. That's something that police are now investigating. And now all of these young people that go to school with him are trying to cope with this loss, but so is his mom, who saw the whole thing happen.
He had a beautiful soul. He protected everybody.
But when 14-year-old Devin Brachy-Selby was stabbed and killed out front of his high school, no one could protect him.
He lost all opportunities. He's never going to grow up. He's never going to get married. He's never going to know what it's like to be a father.
Speaking for the first time publicly today, his mother, Sherry Ann, told us Devin was an animal lover, a goofy guy who loved to dance and make his family laugh. She couldn't stand to talk about the moment Devin was stabbed because she witnessed it. She says Devin called her to pick him up when some other kids started bothering him. A 14-year-old and an 18-year-old, both males from Hamilton, have been charged with first-degree murder.
As far as the bullying factor, we're going to look into this. That part of the investigation is growing. We're very alive to that issue.
The Hamilton Wentworth District School Board is now dealing with its own investigation. Devin confided in his mom about being bullied. She says some days he couldn't muster up the energy to make it to school.
We need to provide the evidence that we have in terms of, what did Devin report to the administration? There's a lot of talk about he was bullied. So what did he report? How did we respond? And we'll look at our own safe schools inquiry. We'll review in terms of, from a safe schools provincial expectation, our own policies. How did we respond and what was reported?
This evening, the school's football team is practicing for tomorrow's game. Their head coach was going to cancel it, but the team wanted to play and make it special.
I am so impressed with this team, how they've handled themselves in and out of the class, and what they're doing to make this game special and dedicate it to Devin and his family.
His mother says she relives the horror every time she closes her eyes, so she hasn't slept since Monday.
Everyone failed my son, even I did. I tried to save him and I couldn't get to him in time.
And another disturbing detail that we learned from police today was that it was allegedly the 14-year-old who stabbed Devin. The school board says they currently have social workers, a crisis response team, and officers at the school, and that those supports will be in place until at least next week. On Saturday, it will be Devin's funeral service, and those attending are being asked to wear pink to represent the message of anti-bullying. Dwight?
It's a tragic story out of Hamilton tonight. Thank you for that, Talia. Community members are stepping up to keep a popular Toronto restaurant open. Soufis on Queen West announced yesterday it was closing because of hateful messages and death threats after a relative took part in a protest at a Maxime Bernier event in Hamilton. Farah Morelli joins us live from outside the restaurant. And Farah, you just spoke with the owner and you have an update for us?
I do, Dwight. About an hour and a half ago, I spoke to the owner of the restaurant, and what he told me is that he now actually plans to try to keep the restaurant open. And this comes less than 24 hours after the restaurant issued a statement that they were going to be closing permanently because of these death threats. But as I said, around 4:30, the owner of the restaurant, accompanied with local businessman Mohammed Faki of Paramount Foods, came out together saying they're going to try to find a way to keep the restaurant open. Take a listen to what they had to say.
We're working on, potential of just to keep this restaurant open, and we hope to get the love that we were, we're just trying to spread despite all what happened.
I'm looking forward to work with them and find a solution to make sure this businesses stay. Regardless what are the reasons, we'll deal with all the reasons, but it's very important that we always send a message that if hate ever win, and if we cannot resolve this in a positive way, I think we're gonna lose ourselves as Canadians.
Now, as I said, Dwight, the restaurant said that it was closing because of these violent threats that it was receiving. And this all, to take you back, this all stems from a protest that happened at a Maxime Bernier rally in Hamilton. The video that you're looking at right now of the rally, this video went viral. It shows a group of masked protesters yelling words like Nazi scum at an elderly couple and blocking them aggressively from going into this rally. And not long after this video went viral, someone identified Allah Al-Sufi, that is the restaurant owner's son, as being at that protest. And it's after that that the restaurant says it started to receive violent and racist messages. Some of them, they say, were even death threats. And that is why they announced yesterday that they were going to have to close the restaurant permanently. Now, I should say I spoke to Toronto police today, and they confirmed they are investigating those death threats. They wouldn't say much more about the investigation, but they also added that auxiliary officers have been in the neighborhood today handing out anti-hate pamphlets to people in the area.
Farah, you spoke to the family of that elderly couple that we saw in that video. What did they have to say?
That's right. So I spoke to the son of that couple today. He was in Brantford. And what he told me is that his mother especially is still very much shaken up after what happened. She's still very upset. But when I asked him about the backlash that the restaurant has been facing, he was very critical of that and had this to say.
My reaction was it broke my heart when I heard about it. He's a new immigrant, working hard to run a business. And in a civilized country, the crimes of his son should not have anything to do with the father. The son, as far as I know, I don't know his name, is a grown adult. I would like to actually speak to the son, but again, I would like the courts and the police to do their job, because intimidating an elderly woman going into a free speech debate is wrong, no matter how they frame it.
Now, the Al-Sufi family, in their statement yesterday, said that they had reached out to Turkowski's family to apologize. Turkowski said they're still waiting for that apology. As for what happens next with the restaurant, all the owner would say is that they're still looking to reopen, and they're going to be releasing more details about that tomorrow. Dwight.
Thank you, Farah. There were nearly 1,800 hate crimes reported in Canada last year, but even that number may not reflect how serious the problem is. CBC News is taking a deeper look at the issue in a new project beginning today called Exposing Hate. Chris Glover joins us now. And Chris, tonight we're looking at how police classify these incidents as hate crimes.
Yeah, so we surveyed 19 police services across the country, including Toronto's, and we found there's no universal police definition for hate crimes in Canada. Experts say it's therefore impossible to understand the scope of the problem or what needs to be done to fix it.
I noticed the words right there, and I literally just froze.
Kyle Hughes shows where on his car he found the N-word and the word "die" etched in snow in December 2016.
I'm not sure if I felt ashamed, if I felt afraid, concerned, angry, upset.
It was one of 2 times he reported a hate crime to Hamilton police. Still, he's surprised his city's rate of police-reported hate crimes is more than 3 times the national average.
That boggles my mind hearing that.
Police departments in Canada track the number of hate incidents, but CBC News has learned they're not all on the same page with what qualifies as a hate crime. For instance, Edmonton Police and several others we surveyed don't specifically include gender identity in their definitions. In Thunder Bay and 3 others, the language includes victims perceived to be part of a protected group. So if someone is attacked for being Muslim but is in fact not, that is still counted as a hate crime. And Quebec's provincial police doesn't have a formal definition at all.
One word difference could make a significant change in this.
Former hate crime investigator Stephen Camp believes the data doesn't show how high the numbers in Canada really are.
That equals insufficient resourcing and insufficient policies and legislation.
He says Canada needs a universal hate crime definition and believes it needs to be a specific charge in the criminal code, not just a factor in sentencing as it is now.
And that can cause fractures between law enforcement and the public when they feel it's a hate crime when it's not, or for example, when it is a hate crime, police don't identify it as a hate crime.
Interesting. We're in the midst of an election, and you reached out to the federal parties about this.
Yeah, they all say that this is a problem that they want to take a close look at. The NDP and the Greens went one step further, and they say that if elected, they'll commit to creating a universal definition of hate crimes for police to use. And the NDP also say they would ensure that every police service in the country has a hate crime unit, something that a lot of people might again be surprised doesn't exist right now.
Now, even with the official data collection, as you mentioned off the top, not being perfect, it's still telling us something about what's happening in Hamilton just down to QEW.
Almost every weekend, there are protesters taking to the streets there, and sometimes it's not just views clashing. Hamilton is a city that is struggling to find a balance between free speech and hate speech, and what's been happening there is a cautionary tale for other Canadian cities to figure out what to do when political differences explode into personal attacks, and that is what we are going to be digging into tonight on The National.
And we'll be watching. As Chris mentioned, you can see more of that CBC News investigation, Exposing Hate, tonight on The National. That's at 9 on CBC News Network and at 10 right here on CBC Television. A violent robbery caught on camera. Thieves intercepted deliveries of cell phones and other high-tech. Now, 6 men have been arrested. More on the alleged multi-million-dollar theft ring coming up. A Liberal candidate in Toronto is now apologizing after comments she made after Justin Trudeau's blackface scandal. Judy Sgro is running for re-election in the riding of Humber River Black Creek. Take a listen.
In knocking on doors and being in the plazas and talking to people to make sure that I'm as sensitive as I need to be if I miss something. And those in the black community have told me that how much more love they have for the Prime Minister, that he wanted to have a black, he took great pride in that too. And that it's the media that have blown this into something that it shouldn't be.
This interview was 2 weeks ago, but resurfaced online today. Not sure we missed it the first time. On her Facebook and Twitter, Sgro wrote today that she should have known better and called her comments insensitive. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh had a different word for it.
It is ludicrous for Ms. Sgro to suggest that. It is embarrassing and it is shameful that she would suggest that people like Mr. Trudeau more because he did blackface. That shows a massive disconnect between the Liberal Party and, in fact, Mr. Trudeau and what real people are living and what they're experiencing. It is shameful that she said something like that.
The 75-year-old Sgro has been the MP for the Humber area since 1999. Before that, she was a Toronto City Councillor. They are one of the fastest growing segments of the Canadian population, and they definitely show up on election day. So why do some seniors feel invisible during this federal election campaign? As part of our series, 5 Issues in 5 Weeks, we are taking a closer look at different voter groups. Shannon Martin joins us live with more now. And Shannon, you've been hearing a lot from seniors since this series began.
That's right. They've been emailing us, Dwight, at CBC Toronto, saying they feel left out of the conversation this campaign, and they want to hear more from party leaders on things like pension protection and dental care.
During this federal election, when people come knocking on the door to get your vote, ask them, what are you doing for seniors?
Politics isn't always served up at the senior social group, but with an election looming, there is plenty to chew on.
I'd like to see elimination of single-use plastics for sure.
Some specific action needs to be taken to the issue of affordable housing.
And I'm particularly concerned about the environment and what we're doing and how it's going to affect the next generations behind us, including my grandchildren.
Big pressing issues. But some feel what's missing from party leaders is any substantial discussion on seniors.
Besides a little polite chat about, oh, we might need this, we might need that, I haven't seen a lot done for it.
I think I've heard the word senior mentioned once or twice in the whole campaign.
Justin Trudeau said he would lower the age from 67 to 65, and that's exactly what he did.
The Liberals promised to increase the Canada Pension Plan by 25% for widows and widowers, but haven't said whether that would come with the cost of higher premiums.
That's why Conservatives have a plan for you, your kids, and your retirement.
They're pledged to boost the seniors' age credit by $1,000. Both the NDP and Greens propose a national strategy on seniors.
They're amongst the fastest growing demographics out there because we're living longer.
This advisor to former Prime Minister Stephen Harper says all parties could benefit from broadening their platforms.
Millennials, they sort of soak up all the attention. They're the sexy demographic. The big question, will they turn out for Trudeau again this time? But a group that we know for sure will turn out is seniors, and there's a lot of them.
So everyone talks about the statistics from last election. Dwight, you'll remember that there was a record millennial voter turnout, something like 57%. But compare that to seniors. Last election, 80% of them turned up on voting day. All the seniors we talked to today say they can't wait until October 21st.
Yeah, they're older and wiser, and they know how important it is to vote. Thank you, Shannon.
That's right.
Colette, I don't know if you could see Shannon's shot out there, but some beautiful sunshine behind her.
Just gorgeous. And yet another day. And we have more to come, Dwight. It's awesome. I was saying earlier today, it's hard to keep track of what day of the week it is because I often think of it in terms of the weather and every day is repeating, right? We are blessed here with the kind of conditions that we're getting as this ridge of high pressure is hanging in there with us. So we have it for another day and still the effects of it even towards the end of the week. Now, the other thing happening is we're getting these winds coming in kind of from the east, at times towards the northeast, and so a little bit of a cooler breeze along the lakeshore, but the current temperature is still holding in there, 13 to 14 degrees we're seeing around the GTA. And what's ahead? Well, as I said, because high pressure hangs in there, maybe a few clouds trying to show up towards tomorrow into the afternoon or early evening, a few more. Mostly you're just going to see blue sky and all of that sunshine. Now, what happens in the bigger picture is that eventually that ridge begins to slide eastward. And as it does, it's going to let this next system work its way in as we're going towards the holiday weekend. So picking up some of that cloud cover in southwestern Ontario and maybe a few stray showers, that would be Friday. Friday night it moves there. We still have a decent day Friday, but clouds increasing. That's all. It looks like it'll really hold off to about Saturday before we have the impact, meaning some wet conditions coming back, and also we'll see our temperatures coming down as we go towards the weekend. I'm going to get into more detail about that coming up, but overnight tonight, 5 degrees, your low, and tomorrow afternoon, a high of 16.
That's a nice swing. Thank you, Colette.
You got it.
Still ahead, facing the threat of deportation from the U.S., we speak to a couple who found a new home here in Toronto.
I remember the first thing I saw was a Canadian flag, and I remember just immediately started crying. How exciting and emotional that was, but also how mad and frustrated I was that it came to that point that my own country had kind of pushed me to this extreme.
Tyler and his husband Eddie's story is now part of a new Netflix documentary. More on their journey after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
A new Netflix series is shedding light on the struggles of families living undocumented in the United States. The 6-part series, Living Undocumented, looks at changes to immigration policies south of the border and the toll on couples, parents, and children. Someone in each of the families is facing the threat of deportation, including Eddie Fernandez. He and his husband are one of the couples featured in the show, later choosing to leave the U.S. and immigrate here to Toronto. Sana Choi sat down with them to learn more about their story.
Eddie is originally from Mexico and had been living in the United States for a significant amount of time since he was about a teenager. Ultimately, we ended up meeting, got married, applied for kind of legal permanent residence for him in the United States. It was denied, pretty extreme denial in the sense that there was a lifetime permanent ban that is placed on him from ever applying for any immigrant benefit in the United States. So from that, we decided that we weren't going to live there.
And had you been to Canada before?
I had never been to Canada my entire life. So I applied for permanent residency in Canada and ultimately ended up receiving it. And so I actually remember I flew into Canada by myself because Eddie essentially couldn't come yet. I was flying here for about a week to kind of look for an apartment, set up bank accounts, get our life established here. And so when the plane started to clear the clouds, I remember the first thing I saw was a Canadian flag, and I remember just immediately started crying. That literally my first vision of Canada. Even talking about it, it makes me emotional. I remember how exciting and emotional that was, but also how mad and frustrated I was that it came to that point that my own country had kind of pushed me to this extreme.
Like everybody knows, this is so difficult for me to be here. I can't.
So what was it like for you when you crossed that border and came into Canada?
Everything was really difficult, emotional, leaving my family and friends, and but happy. They kind of like you going to like a happy country, like they stand by permanent restaurant. The letter they give us, they were so nice and welcoming, and they come out. I was like, "Can I take a selfie with you guys?" They're like, "Oh no, we come outside."
We'll go outside with you.
They turn on their light. Like it was intense moment, and then you switch, kind of like a switch, and then everything was peace.
So you guys are permanent residents right now. Are you hoping to become Canadian citizens one day? And what would that mean to you?
It means so much. I mean, I literally am counting down the days. It's hard to put into words what it means. It's just to even have the ability to live here. Like, that is already everything. So to kind of add on top of that, kind of the rights and responsibilities of being a citizen, I'm speechless. It means so much to me already that how can you add on top of that? So all I know is I'm excited for it, and I know we will get there.
Canadian Thanksgiving is around the corner. What are you guys thankful for this year?
Well, we are so thankful to have the opportunity to be in this country, and I love the people, the community. I feel like they treat me really good, and like I don't have anything bad to say. Like I feel fantastic, and Tyler's mom is coming over for Thanksgiving to celebrate with us, so it's a big thing for us and our closest friends, so they're gonna be here. So we're so excited to help to cook.
I tell this to my friends and family back home all the time, that I really feel like I'm living my best life here, that this is the first time in my whole life that, and I've lived across the United States, I've lived in 3 other countries. This is the first time I've lived in a place where I'm like, I could really see myself here for an extended long-term period of time. And people say, well, don't you hate winter? And I say, yeah, but it's fine. Like, you could adjust to that, but I really love it here. So just the fact that I have the opportunity to, live here and call this my home, I'm thankful for that.
Turkish jets and artillery started pounding Kurdish positions across the border in southeastern Syria just days after the U.S. announced it is pulling out of the area. Now Turkey is facing condemnation from countries around the world. More on that coming up after the break. Peel police have charged 6 men with stealing millions of dollars worth of cell phones and other electronics. They say the men intercepted deliveries. They face a total of 63 charges, with more expected. Linda Ward has more on the alleged multi-million-dollar theft ring.
Peel police say 6 men are believed to have stolen nearly $7 million worth of cell phones and tablets from across the GTA. The 6-month multi-jurisdictional investigation began back in March at a warehouse near Steeles and Goreway.
2 men forced their way into the cab of a delivery truck loaded with cell phones. In this photo, you can see the suspects blocking the path of the truck with their car. While holding the delivery driver at gunpoint, they transferred his load into a waiting truck.
They say the thieves got away with about 8,500 cell phones and tablets, some of which were on display at a news conference here today. Police also released surveillance camera footage of a group of thieves holding up a security guard at a cargo lot in Halton Hills in July.
A security guard was assaulted and held at gunpoint. The individuals involved discovered that the robbery was being captured by the security cameras and fled prior to entering the cargo yard. While the victim wasn't physically injured, the encounter was traumatizing.
On August 25th, police say 4 of the accused stole 3 trucks from a yard and were on their way to commit another robbery when police caught up with them and were able to make their arrests. And they say on the accused, they were able to seize a loaded handgun, bear spray, zip ties, duct tape, and rope. They arrested their 2 other suspects in September. They believe the accused have been operating since 2018, or possibly earlier than that.
The impact on community safety, especially in our region as it relates to robberies, are quite significant. And they're quite often related to multiple investigations in multiple jurisdictions.
Peel police worked with police forces in Halton region as well as Barrie and the Canada Border Services Agency. They say the accused all have ties to the trucking industry as well as Eastern and Western Canada. They're hoping by releasing this, they may be able to link them to outstanding cases elsewhere. Linda Ward, CBC News, Mississauga.
2 people in Germany are dead after a shooting outside a synagogue and a nearby kebab shop. The attack happened in the eastern city of Halle, happened on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year. Amateur video showed a man in a military-style outfit firing shots from behind a car. Police have arrested a suspect who was described as heavily armed. Witnesses say the attacker tried to force his way into the synagogue where about 70 people were gathered, but he apparently failed to get in despite repeatedly shooting at the door. German authorities are calling it an anti-Semitic attack, and the suspect, they believe, may be a right-wing extremist. Turkey is taking aim at Kurdish fighters, launching airstrikes and artillery attacks into northern Syria. And tonight, Turkish ground troops marched across that border despite a growing chorus of international condemnation. Renee Filipponi has more.
Smoke billows near the border between Turkey and Syria. The Turkish military launched its offensive targeting Syrian Kurdish forces, a group it labels as terrorists. President Tayyip Erdogan says they will bring down the terror corridor and that the fight isn't against civilians. Its goal is to create a safe zone in northern Syria, where it could return Syrian refugees who have been displaced. However, Kurdish forces say the offensive has created panic as people flee border towns for safety. They claim civilians are being targeted and some even killed. International condemnation is growing.
I call on Turkey, as well on the other actors, to act with restraint and to stop operations already, as we are speaking, underway.
An emergency UN Security Council meeting has been called for tomorrow.
Our military is in great shape.
Earlier this week, U.S. President Donald Trump announced he was pulling troops from the region. His critics say the move essentially abandoned the Syrian Kurds, longtime U.S. allies. Today, he had strong words for Turkey.
We've told President Erdogan how we feel, but we are speaking to both sides and we're seeing what can be made out of a situation. But we have no soldiers in the area. You know, we're getting out of the endless wars. We have to do it.
The NATO Secretary General acknowledged there are real security concerns at the border, but is urging restraint, worried about the impact this could have on a region that has been the center of a brutal conflict for years. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, London.
Here in Toronto, College Street Bar has been gone for 3 years, forced to shut down by the city and sold. Its former owner, Gavin McMillan, and manager Enzo Carrasco are on trial now for alleged gang sexual assault. The incident spurred a movement to retrain people in the service industry on consent and safety. Alicia San checked in with the woman who started it all.
Now the hearts are a little freehand, so don't mind the shape of them, okay?
Do you remember what people were writing on those hearts?
I do. People were writing letters of prayer, of thought, of hope, of resiliency. People were sharing their own experiences with sexual violence. And then in the end, when we looked at all of these hearts and images, you just saw on a big poster the words, "I believe her," and all these hearts surrounding it with messages of solidarity. For me as a survivor, it took a lot of figuring out how I was going to approach this, what we were going to do, and what can we do to change it.
So we have different voices from the community.
Victoria Bell started the Dandelion Initiative, a group of educators, social workers, service industry folks like herself. They train staff to look for warning signs, people feeling uncomfortable or unsafe on a date, for example, especially when alcohol is involved.
After College Street Bar, we developed a program called Safer Bars and Spaces. And since then, in the last 3 years, we've trained over 50 spaces in Toronto and over 1,200 people across Canada. And now we're a federally incorporated and funded organization. That started with a few survivors standing outside in the cold saying this can't keep happening to people that we love in our communities. This isn't what nighttime safety looks like.
Going out and being part of nightlife is sort of where you meet new people, where you meet old friends, and where you enjoy yourself. And it should also be somewhere you're safe.
We're having this conversation inside Civil Liberties, one of the first places to sign up for Safe Bars and Spaces training.
If people are dating or on dates, which is Tuesdays at Civil Liberties, Tinder Tuesday,
oh, yeah.
We will just walk behind guests and give them a little thumbs up. And if we don't get one back, then that's someone we're just going to make sure has a good night and we'll pay a little more attention.
There's so many different things that are.
Bell says her work isn't done and challenges high-profile service industry leaders to commit to safe space training.
Do you sense a bit of a reckoning happening?
I hope so, because we've been working on it for a real long time.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
After the break, we head back on the campaign trail. Both Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau were talking about their immigration plans, what they would do if elected, coming up. Ontario's police watchdog says a man was shot by a police officer in Etobicoke this afternoon. Just before 2 o'clock, Ontario provincial police officers tried to stop a Mercedes-Benz in the Park Lawn and Queensway area. The SIU says the driver was wanted on an outstanding warrant. Investigators say an OPP officer shot multiple times at the man's car when he drove towards a police cruiser. He's being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. The Special Investigations Unit is now looking into what happened. Conservative leader Andrew Scheer shared his immigration policy today. He says if elected, his government would stop the flow of asylum seekers at unofficial borders like the Roxham Road crossing in Quebec, where he made the announcement.
For Canadians to have faith in the immigration system, the rules have to be followed and the laws have to be enforced. We will close the loophole in the Safe Third Country Agreement. We will also hire 250 additional officers at the Canada Border Services Agency.
Under the law, asylum seekers can claim refugee protection in Canada if they come through an official border crossing from a country that's considered safe, such as the U.S. Scheer also promised to deploy more immigration judges to illegal border hotspots for faster processing and closer monitoring for those considered a criminal threat. Liberal leader Justin Trudeau defended his government's record on immigration, specifically asylum seekers at unofficial border crossings. He says he's pleased people can see the infrastructure they've built at Roxham Road.
Every single person who crosses our border, whether it is regularly or irregularly, gets fully processed by our immigration system. They get full security screenings, but there are no shortcuts into Canada.
Trudeau was in Markham today. His own message was about affordability of day-to-day life. He's offering up tax cuts to the middle class. A group fighting for the wrongfully convicted says the justice system needs to change. It's calling on all federal parties to back its plan for a new tribunal. Today, a man well known across Canada for spending decades in prison for a murder he did not commit pleaded for another option. Lorenda Redekop has the story.
It's good to be out forever, right?
David Milgaard remembers that phone conversation back in the early 90s. Finally exonerated after almost 23 years in prison.
You know, you're innocent. You didn't commit the crime, you know? I mean, I knew that all my life, but you get so caught up in the struggle of trying to get free.
He was 16 when he was first arrested for the rape and murder of a nurse in Saskatoon in 1969. He was released decades later, once they discovered DNA evidence of the actual killer. Milgaard had already applied to the Justice Minister years earlier for his case to be reviewed. He wants an easier process for others.
Innocent men, women, and in some cases children are living on hope. We must free them now.
His longtime lawyer, James Lockyer, is calling for an independent tribunal to review these types of cases, not the current system.
They have to petition the Minister of Justice for help, which is rather like the hen having to go to the fox for help.
The tribunal system started in England and Scotland in 1997. Innocence Canada says since then, hundreds of wrongful convictions have been overturned, including 148 murder convictions. Ron Dalton was wrongfully convicted of murder in a death later ruled an accident. He says a tribunal makes sense.
It's actually a financially sound issue. You know, it costs millions of dollars to keep David Milgaard locked up for 23 years, or myself. And then you have the public inquiries.
The group was surprised the Liberal Party made the issue part of its election platform. Since then, it says both the NDP and the Green Party have also committed to this. It's still waiting to hear from the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois.
Because this is not, at least in our view, a partisan issue. It's an issue of human rights.
Lockyer has been pushing for this for more than 25 years.
I vowed I wouldn't go to my grave till we got this. And I was getting closer and closer.
Innocence Canada says it has another 8 cases pending review by Ottawa that it's convinced are wrongful convictions. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
This is definitely not ideal for this time of year.
You gotta bear up, and this is Calgary, right? This is what we signed up for when we moved here.
A gentle reminder that winter is on its way. This is Calgary. Driving was hazardous by anybody's standards. Police were called 200 times. No serious injuries, though. mostly just some fender benders. And as we all know, this is just the beginning. It's Calgary's first storm of the season. Yeah, I've got a cousin out in Fort Mac. He loves it out there. I don't know how he's feeling today, though.
Yeah, I love that one guy. It's not ideal. Yeah, I bet there's some kids who think it is ideal and it's fabulous. And you know, I've got something interesting to share with you that here in Toronto, on this date in history, there has been snow. In fact, in 1976, almost a centimeter. Okay, nothing like that they're seeing to the west of us, but you know what's going to happen is some of that air, that cooler air, is going to make its way towards us. It's not going to bring us snowfall, but still, it will be bringing our temperatures down and changing our weather conditions. We've got a few days to go yet, though. So seasonal tonight with our lows, another beautiful day tomorrow, and then the changes coming in the form of showers as we head into the holiday weekend. These are the current temperatures and how they're holding on at some really nice readings, including some upper teens for southwestern Ontario. The wind's a little breezy at times, and certainly near the lakeshore it feels a little bit cooler. We're going to find those winds kind of ease at times through the overnight, but they're going to pick up again as we go into the day on Thursday. And again, Thursday night, winds get a little bit gusty too, and generally from the east to northeast. So that's going to keep the temperature maybe down a degree or two unless you can get away from the lakeshore or you live away from the lakeshore. So tomorrow in those areas, the temperature will be a little bit warmer than we're going to see in the city. There's a look at the satellite and radar imagery, still being protected by that dome of high pressure. But this system off to the west, yeah, the same one that brought the snow, is going to work its way towards us very, very slowly. As it does, we'll see some clouds increasing, really more so towards Friday, not so much into Thursday. Into Friday, we'll see that. We should be okay Friday evening and overnight. And then at this point, it looks like the timing will be Saturday when the showers start making their way in. And then it'll take some time for the temperatures to come down. Overnight tonight, there are your readings. Frost advisories, though, around Barrie and Collingwood and through those areas. Tomorrow afternoon, 16 at Pearson, but 17 for you in Markham and St. Catharines. You may hit 18 degrees. And just a look at the cooler temperatures we'll see. Sunday, 13. Monday, not a bad day, but the temperature's just down a little bit, Dwight.
Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Boxing is just teaching me to take a stand in my life, I guess, and be able to push back in a way. But it's actually made a big difference because it helped me, instead of returning to the old ways.
He used boxing to heal from his experiences in the residential school system. We catch up with him as he enters the ring for his first bout after the break.
Hi, my name is Rhiannon.
My name is Carl.
My name is Mustafa.
My name is Riley Peterson, and I'll be voting for Jagmeet Singh's NDP.
And I'm going to be voting Conservative.
Green.
The Liberal Party this federal election.
The issue that drives me to the ballot box is a fiscally responsible government committed to balanced budgets.
Is the climate crisis.
It's climate change and poverty reduction.
The climate emergency and the fact that life is becoming more and more unaffordable and unequal for working people and young people like me.
I'm going to be a part of a panel CBC Toronto is hosting.
About the power that young voters have.
I'll see you there.
See you there.
And I'll see you there.
See you there.
Hundreds of boxers from across Ontario went toe-to-toe this weekend in Toronto. Just stepping in the ring was something special for a 49-year-old boxer from Thunder Bay. He has been using the sport as a way to recover from his residential school experiences. Here's his story.
No, we came in from Thunder Bay. I was told my medical expired about a week ago, and I had to go redo my medical at a walk-in clinic here in Toronto. And we made it back within a couple minutes, I think. That was pretty stressful, I guess, let's just say it that way.
Paul's a masters boxer. It's a group that starts over age 38, and it goes up until, as long as you can do it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a Ring 2 announcement. Could we have Mike Kaupinen of House of Five and Paul Mashimidi of Leading Edge come to the ring number 2.
Well, I kind of felt scared in a way. I wanted to run and hide in a way, but I had nowhere to run to, and you had to stand there and face up to your fear, I guess. I had a lot of fears, a lot of mental put-downs throughout my life growing up, I guess. Boxing has helped me with all that stuff. I didn't know what was going on until I stepped on the towel. I didn't know what actually still going on. It didn't really click in right away. Then all of a sudden, I realized when I looked at the coach, he said it was over.
This corner stopped the fight. You won.
I guess when I grew up in Savannah Lake, I was basically, my brothers was all taken from residential school and all this other kind of stuff. And I remember running and hiding with my mother and being told to hide in the bush. These people are coming, and just growing up that way, basically growing up in a bush and sleeping outside and wrapped in plastic type stuff. And I was basically like my whole life, just going here, somebody's coming and you gotta go here, and just basically running my whole life. And this is, well, I guess this is where this boxing is just teaching me to take a stand in my life, I guess, and be able to push back in a way. So it's actually made a big difference because it helped me, instead of returning to the old ways, I guess basically it was an outlet, I guess, just to get my aggression and anger out, I guess, the stuff that I've been troubling with, that, I guess, my trauma history and all that stuff I went through when I was younger, and all this other residential school stuff, basically all that whole process.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the final bout of our session this afternoon in ring number 2. Can we have Dan Eichner and Paul Mashimidi?
Well, my plan is try not to get hit and do the best I can, and as I train for a year or so, and just try to use that and rely on that, I guess, my best.
Well, you got caught with a few good ones. The other guy, Dan, the opponent, he improved a lot since I seen him box at the Bronze. Changed his style totally.
I feel awesome, even though I lost, I still won. And I just feel like that way, just keep trying what you want to do, and if your heart's there, just keep doing it.
Inspiring story there. Colette's back after the break with a final look at your forecast. Stay with us. We'll be right back. This is taking Fly Like an Eagle to a whole new level. This bird has a camera strapped to it and is giving us an overhead perspective of the Italian Alps. Look at that.
We hope that people seeing how beautiful our nature is, we can like really raise awareness and actually give them, just like a little reason to do something to reduce our impact on climate.
An environmental group says this lofty filmmaker has two goals: to show the world how quickly mountain ice is melting in Europe, you can see it there, and to remind us that big birds like Victor are disappearing because of climate change. But just in case we don't get the message today, Victor is planning several more trips this fall, and we're looking forward to it. What an incredible view to see that.
It is. I'm envious to be able to fly. It's amazing like that, right?
You know, they do have these things you can try. You can jump out of planes, and anytime you want to do any hand gliding or anything, we'll do it for the show, eh?
No, I like it better in my dreams. You ever have those dreams where you can fly?
Put it on the bucket list.
I'll leave it there.
All right.
All right, let's talk about what's going on with the temperatures. Well, seasonal. So overnight tonight, we're dropping to 5 degrees. And we are looking at clear skies again. And so I will just mention that we have the frost advisory again tonight around Barrie, Collingwood, Innisfil, through those regions, still having that risk of some frost developing, especially in those areas prone to it, because your temperatures will be a little cooler and a little closer to the freezing mark. Tomorrow afternoon, because of that east to northeasterly breeze near the lakeshore, we'll see a high around 16. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying a tiny bit cooler perhaps than today. Mostly sunny skies, though. And as you get a little bit further away from the city, Dwight, so even into Markham, you may pick up an extra degree as you can get a little further towards the west. Woodstock, areas like that, you might just get a little bit warmer.
We're just happy to still be in double digits while our cousins in Calgary have snow on the ground.
That was hard to look at.
Oh, it's so messy out there, but we know it's coming, but let's enjoy this while it lasts. This is our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Weiss has your next local news at 11. Be sure to tune in tomorrow at 6 and after the show at 7:30 online for our town hall.